Saga of Tanya, The Evil Season 2 Episode 3 is less about massive battles and more about political manipulation. While Tanya spends much of the episode trying to present the Empire in the best possible light, the ending proves that diplomacy has already failed before negotiations even truly began. On the surface, it appears that peace is finally within reach. But by the end of the episode, viewers discover that every nation involved is thinking only about its own interests, and the Empire has already decided that the war will continue. The episode begins by showing that the Empire's military situation has temporarily improved. After negotiating with local rebels, one front of the conflict becomes much more stable. However, that success is quickly balanced by growing cooperation between the Federation and the Allied Kingdom. Instead of fighting separately, the Empire's enemies are now coordinating military operations, creating an even greater threat. Tanya and the Salamander unit successfully repel one of these attacks, once again proving why she remains one of the Empire's most valuable commanders. But the real conflict of this episode happens far away from the battlefield. A new player enters the story: the Ildoa Kingdom. Unlike the nations already involved in the war, Ildoa prefers to remain officially neutral. However, neutrality does not mean generosity. The kingdom supplies the Empire with much-needed fuel, giving it enormous political influence. Its leaders realize that this dependence gives them leverage. Rather than choosing a side directly, they decide to profit from both diplomacy and war. Their proposal sounds reasonable. They offer to act as a neutral mediator capable of helping the Empire negotiate a ceasefire with its enemies. At first, this appears to be an opportunity for peace. But the audience quickly realizes that Ildoa is not acting out of kindness. Its leaders simply want to increase their own influence and ensure that whichever side eventually wins will owe them a significant political debt. To better understand the Empire, Ildoa sends an official observer to the front lines. That responsibility falls to Tanya. For perhaps the first time in the series, Tanya has to fight not only with magic and tactics, but also with public relations. She understands that every action she takes will shape the observer's opinion of the Empire. Initially, Tanya behaves exactly as expected. She presents herself as a disciplined and polite young officer. The observer sees an intelligent child who appears calm, respectful, and surprisingly mature. Everything seems to be going perfectly. Then reality interrupts diplomacy. Once combat begins, Tanya immediately abandons the innocent image she carefully created. She gives ruthless orders without hesitation, launching attacks that even raise questions about international law. The contrast is shocking. Only moments earlier, she appeared almost harmless. Now she demonstrates exactly why so many enemies fear her. This scene perfectly captures Tanya's character. She does not enjoy unnecessary cruelty. Instead, she believes absolute efficiency wins wars. If harsh decisions produce military victory, she considers them justified. When the observer later asks how she believes the war should end, Tanya gives an intentionally simple answer. She explains that she merely follows orders. As a soldier, her duty is to obey her superiors. On one level, this is a practical response designed to avoid political controversy. On another level, it reflects the military system she serves. Individual opinions matter far less than obedience. Tanya hopes her mission is finally over. She believes she has successfully represented the Empire and may finally receive some rest. Instead, she receives another harsh lesson about the reality of war. A senior officer explains that many soldiers have fallen victim to what is described as the Concord effect. This idea reflects a dangerous psychological trap. Even when leaders recognize that continuing the conflict offers little chance of meaningful victory, they refuse to stop because they have already sacrificed too much. Accepting defeat would force them to admit those sacrifices accomplished nothing. Rather than facing humiliation, they choose to continue fighting. This becomes one of the episode's most important themes. The war is no longer driven purely by strategy. It is driven by pride, politics, and the inability of powerful people to admit failure. The ending delivers the biggest surprise. After hearing Ildoa's peace proposal, the Empire finally sends its official response through Eric. For a brief moment, viewers may believe negotiations are still possible. Instead, the Empire rejects the proposal in the most direct way imaginable. Its message is brutally simple. The Empire has absolutely no interest in accepting peace. Rather than negotiating, it chooses to prepare another military operation against its enemies. This decision completely changes the meaning of the episode. Everything leading up to this point suggested diplomacy might finally slow the endless conflict. Instead, the Empire deliberately closes that door. Perhaps the most surprising revelation is that Hans is virtually the only senior officer willing to seriously consider the peace proposal. His position highlights the growing divide inside the Empire's leadership. Some officers understand the terrible cost of endless warfare. Others believe surrender would be even worse than continued bloodshed. This internal disagreement will likely become increasingly important as the season progresses. The ending also reinforces Tanya's greatest frustration. She has always dreamed of a safe desk job far away from the battlefield. Every successful mission was supposed to move her closer to that peaceful future. Instead, every victory only makes the military rely on her even more. The better she performs, the less likely she is to escape the front lines. Episode 3, therefore, is not about who wins a battle. It is about why wars continue long after common sense says they should end. Political ambition, national pride, and personal ego become just as dangerous as bullets and artillery. The final rejection of peace confirms that the conflict is entering an even more dangerous phase. For Tanya, that means one thing above all else. Her hope for a quiet life has once again been pushed further out of reach. With diplomacy now completely abandoned and the Empire preparing another offensive, the battlefield is about to become even more brutal, setting up an explosive next chapter in Saga of Tanya: The Evil Season 2.